Welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel, and today the customer has approved to do all of the repairs, including the brakes all around, and we are also replacing the front calipers because the one caliper is leaking on the one side. So we are going to do all of that, and there's a few other repairs that we are going to be doing, but I'm going to break that down into different videos, so you will see this vehicle for some time as I post the repairs on my YouTube channel. So I quoted all of the necessary repairs that the customer needs that I'm able to do at this particular time, because the customer he needs the van back soon in the next few days. So I quoted him on all the stuff he needed, and he just told me okay, go ahead and do them. So I got all the parts now, so now I'm going to proceed to do the repairs now. So now I'm replacing the caliper, so I don't need to remove the caliper itself. I'm just going to remove the whole bracket as one whole assembly. So the first thing you need to do is to just crack open the banjo bolt over here on the side. We are just going to crack open the banjo bolt and then tighten it up a tiny bit so that it will be easier to remove the bolt after we have the caliper open. So this is a 14. Not sure if this is the factory size bolt, so I'm going to crack that open. And I'm going to tighten up a tad bit. That's it. We're going to remove the two mounting bolts for the caliper. We're going to remove the two mounting bolts for the caliper. They are 19 mil each. Just going to loosen them up, and we're going to do the bottom as well. So we're just going to loosen them up. And put those bolts aside. We're just going to put the whole caliper on the side for the time being, and then as soon as we are ready, we will install the new caliper, and we are going to completely remove the line. So if this does not come out easy, you can just use a hammer and just whack it a little bit. And it should be able to come out after that. I'm just gonna put this aside. You can use this hammer, or you can use the BFH hammer. It will be a lot easier to use a larger hammer. I have this orange Mac Tools dead blow ball peen hammer. So we are just going to use that. We got the rotor screw still on there. So we're gonna use an impact driver tool and see if they come out. I've already had a long day already, so I wasn't paying attention to those rotor screws. You don't need to put them back if you don't want to. So this one came out loose. There's one that's missing here. I gave it a few whacking already, so it should already be free. It's pretty bad. Now I'm having a look at this hub, and I can see it's pretty it's pretty bad. I can feel like a grinding noise as I spin it. Earlier I said I couldn't hear the wheel bearing, but sometimes you need to check it when you have the rotors and everything off. So I'm not sure right now. I'll probably have to take the other side off so that I'm able to spin this freely. The axle nut is also all rusted and rotted. So now I'm just going to just to clean the rust on the bolts here, the bracket bolts. We're gonna go and do the same for the other ones. I forgot to bring them. So I had a closer look at the wheel bearing. I'm kind of in doubt, but I think they seem to be okay. I'll see what happens after I do all of the repairs, including the rear tires, and see if the noise goes away. Because I don't want to keep on selling the customer things that are not needed. I need to be 100% sure. So I feel like it's making some noise, but can't quite confirm that yet. I had it in the air the other day, and I wasn't able to hear or feel anything when it was spinning. So I think it should be okay. So I'm just going to clean the surface here now. So as I was cleaning the rust, I noticed a nick mark here. I don't know if there was previous work done or not, so I'm not too sure on what's happening. Grab some brake cleaner just to clean everything off here. There's a lot of crusties here, of the rust and everything inside the axle nut area. Just I want to clean any small pieces of rust that may be there. Just gonna spray some fluid film. You can use some anti-seize compound if you want. So now I have all the parts here. You want to compare all of your parts. Make sure you have the correct parts. Everything is exactly the same. And so now I'm just gonna probably for the coated rotors, you may not need to wipe it down with brake cleaner because there is a coating on it, but you can if you want to. You spray a little bit on a shop towel and just do a quick wipe. You probably don't have to do that on the coated rotors. There's only one hole that's available on the hub to install the rotor. I do have some replacement screws, but I'm just going to leave them off for the sake of rust. Because if it gets too rusted, then they may not be able to come off. I'll see on what I have. So now usually you're supposed to clean the brake rotor down in case if there's any residual oils that's from the shipping and manufacturing, because they have these oils coated on the rotor as rust proof so that the rotors don't rust during the shipping. So usually we would use brake cleaner to clean the rotor down so that there's no more oil on it. Otherwise, it could contaminate the friction material on the brake pads. Now I have some replacement screws here, but it's a 4 millimeter hex. You can use an Allen key or a hex bit. So I'll probably replace it with these. Now you can just use an axle nut if you want, and use the lug nut to hold the rotor in place as you are doing the job if you want. That's why they have these. You don't need to reinstall the old ones back. It's just there to hold the rotor in place, because when they had these vehicles on the assembly line, it was just easier to hold it in place. Just gonna put some anti-seize on here. You know, So now I'm just going to spray down on the backing of the brake pads. Just make sure you have the right parts before you do anything. So this is called Permatex Disc Brake Quiet. I'm just going to spray it on the backing of the pads. It's supposed to help to eliminate noise and prevent caliper hopping. And this also could work for problem vehicles in which there is always a noise issue or a concern. So this could help if you're having some problems. But I like to use it on every brake job just in case. You want to spray them each down. Just want to apply a fair amount, but you don't want to spray too much. So I'm doing this because it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for these to dry up. Okay, that's good. So we're gonna wait for the pads to dry up, and then we're gonna start working on the caliper bracket. So now I have the caliper bracket for the left side. You want to make sure it either says L for left, or you just want to make sure that the bleeder screw is pointing in the upwards direction and not at the bottom. So when you install this, it's going to go like this on the vehicle. This will be at the top. So I'm just removing the plastic protective cap here. You want to remove the bolts here holding on to the caliper. You can either use like an impact driver impact to get these out, but you gotta be careful to not damage the boots. Sometimes they're on really hard. Use a longer ratchet. Once you get them loose, you can use a cordless ratchet. Get this out of the way. We're gonna install this, but before we do that, we have to lubricate the contact points and verify that there's enough lubricant or grease in here for the slider pins. I like to use the high temperature stuff on just the contact points only. I've had some issues using them on the pins because they tend to dry up. Well, it all depends if you've had issues or not. So some people have issues, and I don't know if other people if they have been okay using this stuff. Now install the clips. You can lubricate the clips if you want at the bottom. You just like to lubricate it on the bracket and just install the clips. If you're having issues with some of the clips, you may be able to use the ones that either come with the brake pads or with the calipers. if you're replacing the calipers, make sure it's seated in all the way. The air compressor just turned on, and we're gonna have a look at the pins after I install them on the vehicle. After I install the bracket on the vehicle, put some anti-seize here on the bolts. You can spray some fluid film or some kind of rust protection or whatever on the bolts. And we're gonna install it on the vehicle. We're just gonna install a bracket on the vehicle. It's gonna be hard to show everything here, so 2 bolts here. I will try to put the torque spec on the screen for you guys for the bolts. If you don't know what the torque spec is, you can just tighten these down using the German method, nice and tight. You just you tighten them down tight, and then you should be all good to go. It's gonna be hard to squeeze the camera in there, so I'm just going to tighten these down. I'll do a final a tightening afterwards off camera, just showing you guys here. You can use an impact if you want to zip the bolts in. So now we're just going to install the brake pads now. We're just going to lubricate the ears with the contact points. You want to put too much. Install them in the back here. You need to push against the clip here as you're trying to get them in, and then you just do the same thing for the other side, the outboard pad. You have the inboard and then the outboard pad. Make sure that the bottom clip is at the bottom. There's a clip here. There's a clip here that's at the bottom. So this is usually is for the inboard side. So this would go in like this on the other side. So on this side here, I mean, so you this one here, you just install it like this. This one does not have a clip on the other side. I believe that clip is for the squealers, so that when the brake pad gets low, it starts to make noise. Now we're gonna double check the slider pins, make sure they are lubricated. properly. I'm not sure what kind of grease they put here. So I'm just gonna put some of the green stuff here. The silicone brake lubricant. Don't need to put too much. And the same for the bottom. If you want, you can just wipe down the caliper pin and just apply the lubricant that you want to use. Insert it here. Now, I've told people in the past that you want to make sure that you squeeze the boot here like this and make sure that there's no excess grease or lubricant in here, because sometimes that can cause an airlock. And usually if there's an airlock here, the vehicle will have the tendency to pull onto one side, in which the one that has the airlock. So if you put too much lubricant, it will cause the vehicle to pull to one side. So sometimes after I'm done the job, I like to use a thin screwdriver and push back on the boot and make sure there's no excess grease. So I'll show you guys that after I'm done. So now we're gonna install these clips that help to push back on the brake pads to keep them away from the rotors. So we're gonna install one here and one at the bottom, and then we're gonna install the caliper. So what I like to do is I get the new bolt here that came with the caliper. Going to lubricate it with anti-seize. And we're gonna just install the one bolt here so that when I install the clips, it'll be easier to just to push down on the caliper. So I feed it through the hole here. So I feed the bolt through the hole here. I have the caliper facing up. So that way when I put these in, I can hang on to the pads and and put the caliper down as soon as I'm done. So I'm going to install this. When you install them, you're going to be needing to hold the brake pads down until you get the caliper in. Some people have stated you can use a C-clamp to temporarily hold the brake pads down. As you get the caliper in, then you can remove the C-clamp. So now I have these in. I just need to push down to turn down the caliper now, and then that's it. Now I'm just going to install the bottom bolt. Sometimes I don't like to use anti-seize because it gets all over on the gloves. Sometimes I either need to use brake cleaner or switch gloves. So now I'm just going to tighten up these bolts. I'll show the torque spec on the screen somewhere. Now I'm going to install a brake hose here. This one, it came with new banjo bolts. There's two of the copper washers here. I'm going to put that on the side. If you want, you can switch gloves if your gloves are dirty, because you don't want to get any dirt inside there. So I'm gonna remove the old banjo bolt or the line and transfer it over. This one is a 14 millimeter bolt. I'm just gonna remove this now. Make sure that the brake fluid, the reservoir, is full before doing this. I don't like to pinch the brake hose because it makes a gigantic mess. And you gotta be careful now. The caliper is pretty heavy. So put this aside here. Make sure there's no copper washers here. If there is, you're gonna have to remove them. So I'm just going to get some brake cleaner to wash down the line. Make sure there's no dirt. Usually you'll see the old copper washer on the banjo bolt and sometimes on the caliper itself. Always use brand new ones. I'm going to put one copper washer here on top like this, and one on the other side. Then you want to thread this in by hand. You may need to wipe your gloves down because the brake fluid will make things slippery and hard to work with. Sometimes I keep a couple of rags on me and work like this. Sometimes I'm trying to manually thread in the banjo bolt here now. These manufacturers, they decided to use a different size bolt, so a socket. This one is an 11 millimeter. Just trying to get this in by hand all the way, and we're going to tighten it up afterwards. Make sure that the line lines up inside the window here, so it needs to line up. Otherwise, you may damage something. Just install this tight. I'll need to get the torque spec for this. Want it tight, but not too tight. After you install this, the brake fluid should stop leaking after that. So after you're done with the install, it should look something like this. So after we are all done, we are going to bleed the brakes afterwards. After I'm all finished, the other side is the same exact thing, so I'm not going to show that. So I was gonna say earlier, I was talking about having an airlock in the system. So and what I like to do, I like to push back on the boot and squeeze on the boot. Make sure there's no excess uh, lubricant inside. And do the same for the bottom as well. Make sure to be careful to not damage uh, the boot. I'm just gonna spray a little bit of brake cleaner for now. So now just make sure you double check your work. Make sure the backing plate is not rubbing against the back of the rotor. Sometimes you may need to push the backing plate a tiny bit. Make sure you double check your work. Make sure that the caliper is moving back and forth freely. Make sure all the bolts are tight, and then do a quick wipe on the rotor and stuff here, and then that's it.